Hi, my name is Lina, as many of you would know. I come from two countries which are complete opposites. From the very north, Norway, and from Southeast Asia, Vietnam. However, despite being from both these countries, I have never lived in either one of them. In fact, I have only ever lived in Singapore. In 2003, I was born in Singapore and have grown up here ever since. Even though I have only ever lived in Singapore, the countries I'm from and have visited have still played a big part on the way I speak and what English I use. I personally think I am a third culture kid, as the definition of a TCK is a third culture kid is a person who has spent a significant part of his or her developmental years outside the parent's culture. The TCK frequently builds relationships to all of the cultures while not having full ownership in any. David C. Pollock. Therefore, by definition, I am a third culture kid. Being from both Norway and Vietnam, I know parts of each culture as well as how to speak some of each language. I personally think that as I've grown up over the years living in Singapore, speaking more and more English to other people, I've become more distant from my mother tongue, making me less confident in how I speak Norwegian and Vietnamese. On the bright side, living in Singapore has boosted my confidence in my English as well as increased my vocabulary as I'm exposed to various cultures every day which I need to speak English to. Just like you and I, multiple families from various nationalities have come to Singapore to live and to work. With all these different nationalities, I have been exposed to multiple accents and dialects. All these different accents and dialects has had an overall impact on the English I speak as well, as I learn from their accents and pick up a bit of it. As you can see in the photos of this video, I have been traveling to multiple countries ever since I was just a baby. And this has really impacted on the language I speak and how I communicate with others. Traveling around the world, I've been, again, exposed to different accents, different dialects, and it has had an impact on my English because when I hear others talk, I think I do pick up a bit of their accent, and that's how I then talk back to them. So when I travel around and I hear these different accents, I go into that sort of tone and I talk back to them like that because I feel that's easier for them to understand and it's easier for me to communicate with them, which has really impacted my English because even though I'm not talking to them anymore once I leave, it still becomes a part of how I speak. Talking about how my English has improved and how I have a wider vocabulary now, it has, in a way, negatively impacted my mother tongue, as I don't feel as comfortable speaking Norwegian or Vietnamese, and so I find it harder to communicate with my family when I visit them. This brings us to the next aspect of my life, which has really impacted the English I speak, which is family and friends. As you should now know, I'm from two countries, Norway and Vietnam, and have families living in both countries. However, when I visit them, it's harder for me to communicate with them nowadays because I've become so used to speaking in English. I do understand everything they say to me. If it's Norwegian or Vietnamese, I'll understand it, but I find it a lot harder to answer back in that mother tongue because I've become so used to speaking English all the time with my friends. Because I've only ever lived in Singapore, I don't really have any friends in either Norway or Vietnam. But the friends I have made, some of them do come from these countries and have moved back there, but because they know English as well, I choose to speak to them in English rather than in Norwegian or Vietnamese. As I just said, all my friends, I've always known them from going to school in Singapore, and so going to an international school in Singapore, all my friends are from different countries around the world and have different accents and different dialects and have different ways of speaking to one another. And all of this has impacted my own English and how I speak to people, because being around them most of the time for at least 6 hours a day, I pick up points and parts of their English, and it becomes a part of my English. Lastly, after having impacts from where I've been to and lived and come from, my friends and family, the last point that has really impacted my English is what I do in my free time, basically hobbies, activities, which include football, and just watching movies, social media, TV shows. Football has really impacted my English because it's a team sport, so I gotta know how to communicate with my team in a way that they'll understand me, and I gotta understand everything they're saying. So it's impacted my English because I've learned words like vocabulary from football, which we use in our matches, in our training. Social media has impacted my English because it shows a range of different nationalities, but instead of meeting them face to face, it's all online. And you just see how different people react to things, how they talk about things. And when I see it a lot, it just, like I said before about talking to my friends nearly every day for at least 6 hours, when I look at social media and I see all these people talking a lot, I pick up parts of how they react, parts of how they talk to each other. And all of this has now become a part of my dialogue, like how I speak to everyone in my everyday life. And basically, these three aspects being environment, which is where I've grown up, where I've been to, where I'm from, my family and friends, which is everyone I'm around every day, as well as social media and activities I do in my free time. All of these aspects have really impacted the language I speak and the English I use when I talk to others online, face to face, anytime I communicate with everyone. So yeah, thank you for watching.